Hi everyone, it's Sandy, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the worst and most disappointing books that I read in 2017. Despite the fact that I barely read anything during the last 4 months of the year, overall I thought I had a really great 2017 reading year because I read so many books that I really enjoyed and have fallen in love with. However, there are still a handful of books that I didn't really enjoy and I thought were a bit disappointing, and those are the books that I'm going to be talking about in today's video. The first book that I'm going to talk about in this video is The Thousandth Floor by Katherine. McGee. This book takes place in New York City, where there is this tower that is a 1000th floor, and where you live on this tower determines your social class. So the higher up you live, the wealthier you are, and the lower you live, the poorer you are. This book is also set 100 years in the future, so there's a lot of new technological innovations, which I found to be really interesting to read. One thing that I didn't really like about this book is that it follows 5 main characters, which I found to be a little bit too much. Even though there are 5 different main characters, I found 2, maybe even 3 of the characters to have very similar backgrounds. There are definitely things that distinguish them from one another, but they still come from the same background, and I found that to be very confusing at first because I would confuse them with one another. Also, a couple of the characters just fell flat for me, and I really didn't care about reading in their point of view. Another thing that I didn't like about the story is that one of the main characters has a crush for her adopted sibling, and I'm just not a fan of that. I felt a little bit uncomfortable reading about it, and I'm just not a fan of that type of storyline. This book has been compared to having similar vibes of Gossip Girl. There are lots of drama, secrets, and lies throughout this book. I really enjoyed seeing all the different technology in this book, but overall the story and the characters just wasn't for me. My next disappointing read is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. This book follows Marin, who has moved from California to New York to go to college, and she has a best friend named Mabel who is visiting her for winter break. Marin and Mabel used to be super close friends, but something has happened that kind of distanced their friendship, so now Marin has to confront everything that has happened. I found this book to be a little bit disappointing because I read Nina LaCour's previous book, Everything Leads to You, and I really enjoyed that book. I really love the characters in that book and the overall storyline, so I was really excited to read something new from Nina LaCour. There really isn't a plot for this book. It does switch between past and present timelines, so in the past they're in California and you're seeing their friendship, and in the present it's winter break and they're sort of trying to reconnect with one another and confront everything that happened prior to Marin moving to New York. Sometimes it's totally okay that a book doesn't really have a plot because the characters make up for that, but in this book I found that the characters didn't really make up for the lack of a plot. I do think that overall the story is beautiful and heartbreaking, but I also found the story to be slow and boring at times. So unfortunately I didn't enjoy this book as much as I wanted to. The next disappointing read is Starfall by Melissa Landers. This is the second book in the Starflight duology. I really enjoyed the first book, Starflight, which has to do with space pirates. The second book is actually a companion novel, so it doesn't follow the 2 main characters from the first book, but it does follow 2 side characters that I really liked from the first book and really wanted to know more about. So I was really excited to go into this book, and I just found it to be so disappointing. The 2 main characters frustrated me constantly. They were constantly fighting back and forth. They were keeping secrets from one another. There was a lot of miscommunication. I ended up rating this book a 2 out of 5 stars, and I definitely would have given it a higher rating if the 2 main characters weren't so annoying. The next disappointing read is By Your Side by Kasie West. This book follows a girl and a boy who ends up being locked in a library together. The premise of the story sounded so cute and I was so looking forward to going into it, but the way the story was executed fell flat for me. I thought the overall story was just okay. They ended up being released from the library pretty earlier on than I expected. One of the main characters does have anxiety, and I really enjoyed that representation. The main love interest is supposed to be this mysterious bad boy with this reputation, which I don't even remember what his reputation was supposed to be, but other than what I just talked about, both main characters fell flat for me. I feel like there really wasn't much to them. I also didn't enjoy the romance very much. You would think that if 2 characters were trapped in a library together, you would immediately ship them, and I did at first, but once they started to actually talk to one another, I didn't feel any chemistry whatsoever. By Your Side is actually the 3rd Kasie West book that I've read. The first one that I read is P.S. I Like You, and I really enjoyed that book, and then the second one that I read is On the Fence. I didn't like On the Fence, but I did enjoy By Your Side a bit more than On the Fence, so I haven't really been having much luck with Kasie West books other than the very first book that I've read. I don't know why, but I still want to read more of Kasie West books, especially when I'm in the mood for something very light and fluffy. If you have any recommendations of what I should pick up next, please let me know in the comments below. My next disappointing read of 2017 is The Star Touch Queen by Roshani Chokshi. This book follows Maya, who is cursed with this horoscope that that promises a marriage of death and destruction. This book also involves a lot of Indian folklore and mythology. On its own, I think the writing is beautiful. Sometimes the writing is so descriptive to the point where I'm like, wait, what am I reading? Although I think the writing is beautiful, I found the story and the world to be so confusing. I really didn't know what was going on for most of the story. Like, why is Maya doing this? Why is this happening? I really don't know. I can't explain that. The author does have very vivid and beautiful descriptions, but these descriptions is a little bit too much and would constantly pull me away from what is happening in the story and then leave me with no idea as to what is going on. I also didn't like the romance. It felt like insta-love to me. My next disappointing read is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is a mystery book that follows 10 people who are invited onto this island and are slowly being killed off one by one. Agatha Christie is a well-known mystery writer, and this is the first Agatha Christie book that I read, and I was so excited to go into it because I love mystery books and I was going to be reading one by a well-known mystery writer. The writing and the story just wasn't as compelling as I was expecting. When I read mystery books, I'm expecting to be hooked into the story, but that didn't happen for me when I was reading this book. I did really enjoy the mystery aspect. This book is about 250 pages, and because there are 10 characters that are being killed off, I felt like everything about the story was just really rushed. It was also difficult to follow who was who because there are so many characters. I don't think this book is terrible, but I didn't love it either. I just expected more from Agatha Christie, and I definitely do plan on reading more of her books. If any of you have read Agatha Christie's books, please let me know some recommendations of what I should read next in the comments below. And my last disappointing read of 2017 is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This book follows Makani, who moves from Hawaii to Nebraska to live with her grandmother. In the town that she lives in, there is a serial killer going around and killing off students from her high school. I really enjoyed Stephanie Perkins' other novels, which are very fluffy, light contemporary books. I was looking forward to reading something different from Stephanie Perkins, but this book just didn't meet my expectations. Despite the brutal killings, I thought the story overall was pretty underwhelming. I just felt very disconnected from the story, and I didn't really care about the characters very much. For a YA horror novel, this book just lacked a lot of tension and suspense, and I also didn't like how the killer was revealed so early on in the story. So those are all the worst and most disappointing books that I read in 2017. If you've read any of these books, please let me know in your comments. Even if you did really enjoy them, I would love to hear why you enjoyed them. And if you also didn't enjoy a book that I mentioned, then I would love to bond with you about that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!